Hey everybody, it's Ann Beebe. Today is Friday, February 1st, 2019. I'm Barb Hammer. And Ann Beebe has been a bad girl on Twitter. So I went to bed on the evening of Wednesday, January 30th. And sometimes when I have a problem sleeping, rather than toss and turn in bed, I would get up in the middle of the night and usually go online for a little while until I feel sleepy again, and then I go back to bed. So I got up probably around 1 a.m. yesterday, Thursday, January 31st, and I was on Twitter, and just before 1:30 a.m., up on the screen pops this message that my account has been locked. And at the same time, they probably sent out this email. So it was around the same time, just before 1:30 a.m. So I got this email from Twitter. It says, your Twitter account has been locked. And it says, hi, Barbara Hammer. Hi, Twitter. Your account at Boo and Hammer has been locked for violating the Twitter rules, specifically for violating our rules against hateful conduct. And it says, you may not promote violence against, threaten, or harass other people on the basis of race, ethnicity, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, religious affiliation, age, disability, or serious disease. And they have a screenshot of the offending tweet, and it says below that, please note that repeated violations may lead to a permanent suspension of your account. Proceed to Twitter now to fix the issue with your account. So when I saw that message, it said I could appeal. So I did appeal, but I didn't want to have to wait. So I went ahead and deleted the tweet so I could start the countdown. So this suspension is for a week, a full 7 days. So that doesn't run out until around 1 a.m. on Thursday, January 7th. And this is not my first suspension. So a couple of weeks ago, I was suspended for, I guess, something similar, a similar offense. And that was clearly an account I had I was reported, and it was an account called Occupy Yourself, which is clearly an account that Twitter protects. And that account even bragged that Twitter loved it. Right, it bragged that right before I was suspended. So it must have reported me. You know, that was sort of a veiled threat, I guess, that Twitter loved it. So Twitter will protect certain accounts. And so I'll explain what happened. So this tweet, I think I must have sent it out on Monday, January 28th, because I remember the circumstances for for posting this tweet, this offending tweet, which I will read later. So on Monday, January 28th, Partisan Girl, who's a Syrian who lives in Australia, had posted this tweet. And she usually talks about the regime change propaganda against the Assad government in Syria. But she will talk about other propaganda concerning other countries or other things. And so she tweeted out, NATO puppet Bellingcat created an account pretending it's in Venezuela when the Bellingcat author behind it is actually a student in Canada. So she posted these screenshots. So the In Venezuela blog account at In Venezuela blog, and it says covering the Venezuelan crisis in English, updated daily, and it is managed by Giancarlo Fiorella, That's his Twitter. This is his Twitter handle at John Fiorella, and he lives in Toronto. And then there's a screenshot of Giancarlo Fiorella's Twitter account, and it indicates he works for Bellingcat, and he's a PhD candidate at the University of Toronto's Criminology and Socio-Legal Studies Department. And it says running, so he runs this blog in Venezuela. So I looked at those, I went to those Twitter pages and I looked at them and I thought, well, that's interesting. And I live in Canada, so I was born and raised in Virginia, and I have dual citizenship. I live in Canada. And I thought that was interesting, this Venezuela-Canada connection. So I tweeted out, I will go to the offending tweet now. Oh, also, yeah, so the tweet, my offending tweet, says, a shame on the University of Toronto's Criminology and Socio-Legal Studies Department. It got a war criminal, Giancarlo Fiorella. It's got a war criminal, Giancarlo Fiorella, for a PhD candidate. Shame on Canada for being America's little bitch. I will often call Canada America's little bitch because that's what it is. And my husband, who's Canadian, agrees with me. And I'm not insulting Canadians. I'm insulting the Canadian government. So then I said, shame on Bellingcat pussy, Elliot Higgins. He's the failed lingerie salesman who runs Bellingcat. Shame on Bellingcat pussy Elliot Higgins for running another murderous psyop in Venezuela blog in Latin America for greedy neolibs, neocons. So that was the offending tweet. And that's why I've been suspended for a week. So there's also this MintPressNews article that's about this account. So it says Bellingcat member likely behind Toronto-based Venezuelan pro-opposition news outlet. The Open Intelligence Investigation Network, Bellingcat, is infamous for its biased reporting and forwarding the mainstream media narrative. Its connections to the Institute of Statecraft and its pet project, the Integrity Initiative, are also no secret. So this is an article in MintPressNews about this Bellingcat account in Canada. And I'll put this link in the show notes. Yeah, so very interesting. So I've been suspended for talking about this account, and the timing is also very interesting because Twitter, there's this RT report. So Twitter takes down hundreds of accounts linked to Venezuela amid U.S. calls for regime change. So this takedown of accounts on Twitter happened the very same day that I was suspended. So I think I am part of this Twitter purge of accounts that are sympathetic to the legitimate government of Venezuela, the Nicolas Maduro government. So this report is from today, but it's talking about the Twitter purge yesterday. And Twitter claims that these accounts that were taken down were engaged in a state-backed influence campaign. And yeah, it said that they were claiming that the accounts were in Venezuela, but I think that they were taking down any accounts that were sympathetic to the Maduro government and had been flagged, I guess. So I think my account was flagged because of that one tweet. So it claims that these accounts appear to be engaged in a state-backed influence campaign targeting domestic audiences. Yeah, so I was definitely part of this Twitter purge. And Abby Martin talked about this, Ben Norton talked about this, Max Blumenthal talked about this. And it says here, the Twitter purge comes more than a week after U.S. President Donald Trump recognized Venezuela's opposition leader, Juan Guaido, as interim president in a provocative move against the elected government of Nicolas Maduro. Guaido, who is the president of the National Assembly, swore an oath standing on the streets of Caracas and declared himself interim president on January 23rd. And so there's been a crackdown on Twitter against accounts that are sympathetic to the legitimate government of Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela. So it's interesting this this Venezuela-Canada connection. So same time. So this is on January 28th. So on Monday, the same day that I tweeted out that offending tweet, Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister, Chrystia Freeland, announced that Canada would be hosting a Lima Group meeting on Monday, February 4th. And so this is a CBC report about it. And that's Chrystia Freeland. And there's a lot of interesting stuff about Chrystia Freeland. And I will actually have to do more than one video about this, but I will touch upon what the Lima Group is. So what is the Lima Group? It's a multilateral body that was established following the Lima Declaration on August 8th, 2017 in the Peruvian capital of Lima, where representatives of 12 countries met in order to establish a peaceful exit to the crisis in Venezuela. Among other issues, the now 14-country group demands the release of political prisoners, calls for free elections, offers humanitarian aid, and criticizes the breakdown of democratic order in Venezuela under the Bolivarian government of Venezuela. So the Lima Group was formed. It's sort of a regime change group targeting Venezuela. And it was in response to the Organization of American States' inability to take action against the Venezuelan government. So the Organization of American States includes the United States. And the United States takes a leading role there, but it can't always get things that it wants pushed through there. So this is why the Lima Group was formed. And Canada, so the U.S. is not part of this Lima Group, but Canada is, and Canada is often a proxy for the U.S., increasingly so. And that's why I call Canada America's little bitch. So this Lima Group, it's interesting, the countries that are members are Argentina, Brazil, Canada, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, Panama, Paraguay, and Peru. So basically, these are all countries that have been neoliberalized and or are either neoliberal or being neoliberalized. And so those are the members. And so the fact that Canada is taking a leading role in this regime change operation is really disgusting. And as I said, that's why I call it Canada. America's little bitch is Canada. So Chrystia Freeland, she's the Foreign Affairs Minister, and she's got an interesting background. I want to talk more about her and Canada's role, but I will just touch upon this in the video. So I sort of call her the Canadian Hillary Clinton. So she's actually pretty high profile. I remember seeing her as a guest commentator on CNN, and she's controversial. So she actually has a grandfather. I think her maternal grandfather was actually a Nazi collaborator in Ukraine, of all places. And she actually, so she is part of the Trudeau government, and the Trudeau government is viewed as being progressive, but it really isn't. So it's they are corporate centrist, and why Canada is taking this leading role. So let's see, I found some interesting things here. So this is a Christian Science Monitor article. It's just a summary of the article. So it says, can Canada lead on Latin America? Venezuela poses a test. So Canada has typically not been seen as a leader in the Americas, but the Venezuela crisis is changing that as Ottawa tries to lead a multilateral response instead of taking Washington's guidance. Both Canada, so you got to remember this article is anti Maduro government. So both Canada and the United States are looking to bring an end to the political crisis in Venezuela and the humanitarian suffering that it has caused. And for both, that means President Nicolas Maduro must step down. But there the similarities end. In the past, Ottawa would have likely followed Washington's lead, but the Trump administration has been forging an aggressive path against Mr. Maduro. It has threatened military intervention, both in veiled and direct terms. On Monday, the U.S. announced sanctions on Venezuela's state-owned oil company. On Monday, the U.S. announced sanctions on Venezuela's state-owned oil company. Ottawa, in contrast, has been playing the sort of multilateral role that used to be a U.S. staple on the world stage. That is giving Canada an influential position in resolving the situation in Venezuela with leverage the U.S. lacks, because Canada is not seen as an interventionist country. It doesn't have the history of actively supporting coups d'etats. It doesn't seem to have the type of interest the U.S. has, says Nicholas Saldias, a researcher at the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars. Canada in Latin America is respected in a way the U.S. would never be respected. Well, I just kind of laugh at that because Canadian mining companies have a terrible reputation in Latin America. And if a Canadian travels to certain places in Latin America where Canadian mining companies have been operating, they are in great danger. And the locals do not like Canadians, that's for sure. So there's another article here I will touch upon. So why are they using Canada? So the Trudeau government, it says here, okay, it explains the Lima Group. So the Lima Group was going to meet on Monday, and yeah. So the group was established in August of 2017 as an opposition to the OAS, the Organization of American States, because they couldn't get the decisions that they wanted to get out of the Organization of American States. So they formed an organization to address the Venezuela crisis. And in its mandate, it states that it is established to bring about a peaceful resolution to the Venezuela crisis. Okay, so in this interview on Real News, this is the transcript. So, okay. So it talks about why Canada. So here we go. So the Liberal government in Canada. Okay. So the Liberal government in Canada is viewed by many as a sort of a progressive government, but the Trudeau government in Canada has been right at the forefront of this campaign to try to undermine the Maduro government. So I will get into this more, but it's interesting. So Trudeau's government is sort of viewed as not as belligerent, and that's why the Canadian government is being used and often has been used as a proxy for the U.S. to get things done that the U.S. can't get done. So I'm going to get into this some more. But I also want to say that I'm guessing, because my suspension from Twitter is 7 days long. I'm guessing that there is something really bad in the works in Venezuela, and I don't know what it is. I've heard a lot of things, so there's been talk of like a false flag attack that might be carried out in Venezuela to trigger some sort of military action or something. I've also seen something about there might be thinking of an invasion, two-front invasion of Venezuela, one coming from Colombia in the west and one coming from the south from Brazil, because those are both neoliberalized governments that don't like the Maduro government. So I don't know, but I think there must be something bad in the works in the next week. That's all I'm going to say. So so by January 7th, so since my suspension is over the early morning of January 7th, like 1 a.m. or 1:30 a.m. or something, I think there's something bad that's being planned against the Maduro government. I'm kind of speculating or guessing just because of how long my suspension is going on. And then the Lima Group is meeting on Monday. So anyway, I'm going to talk more about this. I want to get more in depth about this propaganda account and Canada's role in Venezuela. But anyway, that's what's going on right now. So thanks for listening. I hope you found this interesting, and I wanted to get on to a topic that's about Canada too, because I try to talk about Canadian politics. And so thank you for listening, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.